Everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Goodison Park, my home. We're back in the studio. As you can see, my special guest today is Martin Dobson. How are you, Martin?
Okie dokie. Thanks very much for asking. I'm glad I'm here. And thanks for the invitation.
No, you're welcome. A bit of an ordeal for Martin on the trains coming in, but he's safely with us now and in situ. And of course, I've got to ask you first off, Martin. You've got a book out, haven't you? Dobo for club and country. We'll just start for that one because it's an opportune time to speak to you. I mean, I think it's quite different, isn't it? You've done a lot of autobiographies in that basically you've done it yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, I did. I wonder why I did it, why I started. Because at the end, because after 3 or 4 years, it was during lockdown.
Yeah.
And I decided to clean out the garage at home. We live in the Horwich area. And I came across 3 big black boxes. I thought, what are these? Because most of the stuff were going down to tip or to the family or charitable organisations. I looked in there, and it was memorabilia that my mum and dad had kept.
Okay.
And in those days, it was programmes and newspaper articles and photographs and stuff like that. And of course, I started reading it all, and there were 3 boxes of it. And I think, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
Do I pass it on to the grandchildren, kids, or whatever it is? And I just decided there and then, because it was lockdown, and I thought, well, I'll get on the computer and start writing about my career.
Yeah.
At least there's something there, and then the rest of the stuff can move on. There's been several times during that 3 years I thought, why did I even start?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how it goes. But then, of course, at the end, you've got to find a publisher. You've got to buy the books yourself, then you've got to sell them yourself. So it's a real operation. But I'm glad I did it now, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah. So I mean, some of those stories we'll be going through today, of course. And as you say, you're born in Rishton in Lancashire, not too far away from Blackburn. I mean, what were your first football memories? Have you always been a footballer from a young age?
I think so, yeah. I went, my dad was a Blackburn Rovers supporter.
Okay.
So I used to go along to Ewood Park and watch the likes of Brian Douglas and Ronnie Clayton, Fred Else, was in goal at that time in the First Division. And it was quite interesting that eventually I was signed for Burnley. It's a bit like supporting Liverpool and signing for Everton, isn't it? It's one of those situations. But yeah, I lived in a little place called Rishton. I went to school at Clitheroe Grammar School. And I would stay there for 18 until I was 18 years of age, did my A-levels there. Mm-hmm. And it was only afterwards when I became a professional footballer.
Yeah. And then we've been talking off air before we started there. Your first memories of Goodison Park, not everyone might be aware of this, but it's quite a special one.
It is.
Yeah.
My first club I signed for Bolton Wanderers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a striker in those days, centre forward, and I thought I was in good hands because the absolute icon that is Nat Lofthouse, he was the coach there. He'd just retired from playing, and I thought, well, I'm going to learn a lot from the great man. Yeah. But it didn't quite work out that way. Mm-hmm. Different players. It's my confidence just went a little bit during that season. But interesting, before then, in 1966, of course, it was the World Cup.
Yeah.
And Brazil, incredibly, were training at the Bromwich Street training ground at Bolton Wanderers.
Right.
So during that time, before I actually stepped out as a player for Bolton, I used to go and watch Brazil training.
Okay.
And you're thinking, I was allowed to go on just on the sidelines, there's no security or whatever. And the likes of Garincha and Pele and Tostao were there, and it just opened my eyes to the incredible, abilities that these guys had.
Yeah.
But also, because they had smiles on their faces as well. Okay. They were enjoying what they were doing. And with me just starting my career as a 19-year-old centre forward, I realised that, obviously I had a lot to do. Mm-hmm. But it's important that you enjoy what you're doing when you're in a full-time profession as a footballer.
Yeah.
So I was learning all the time from those guys, and the second game that Brazil played, of course, they played at Goodison, and that was my first time of going to the great ground.
Yeah. So you'd seen them in training up close, and those smiles on their faces, and like I said, well, maybe there's some less smiles on their faces as Hungary beat them, didn't you? But
Yes.
you really appreciated the atmosphere at Goodison Park and the noise.
It was fantastic. I went on my own. I bought a ticket. I was on the terraces.
Yeah.
You know, it's not all-seater stadium at that time. I just looked around. There was and the atmosphere, the noise level.
Yeah.
I thought, wouldn't it be, you know, as at that time, 19 years of it, wouldn't it be great, you know, even if Bolton Wanderers came and played at Goodison,
just to play there,
you know, could they play it? Even though Bolton then were in the second division, obviously Everton in the first division. It didn't quite work out that way, but I was taking it all in.
Yeah.
And I was thinking straight away, hey, I'm in the same profession as these guys. You know, first year professional at Bolton Wanderers, £14 a week. And I was thinking straight away, I think Pelly might be on a bit more than 14 quid a week at that time. But it was a great experience for me to go to that game.
Yeah. And then after you were let go on a free transfer by Bolton Wanderers, but incredibly after you went to to Burnley, where you had the title-winning manager Harry Potts was still there, and he was a former Everton player himself. I mean, it was a big break for you.
It was a massive break.
Yeah.
How it came about, the free transfer, at the end of that season, the Bolton Wanderers, 12 months, I got a recorded delivery letter. And of course, one of those, never had one before.
No.
And you've got to sign it to make sure you get it. And of course, it came for the manager, Bill Ridding at Bolton. And thanks very much, Martin, but goodbye, basically. Right. And I thought straight away, I mean, if I'm ever in that position of releasing a player, you get them in your office, don't you? Try and give them a bit of hope. Yeah. And say, or try and get a trial for you or something else. But he didn't even say anything to my face. And I was really on the deck then. And my dad, because I was with my mum and dad at that time, you know, in the room, and I was on the floor. Yeah. And if my dad had said then, well, Martin, they're the professionals. They know what they're talking about. Obviously not good enough. Maybe it's best to do something else. And I've gone down that path. Yeah. But he didn't. He said just the opposite. He says, Martin, I think you deserve another chance, son. Why don't we get in touch with Burnley? Because they came in, they showed interest when we'd already committed ourselves to Bolton. Yeah. Why don't we get in touch with the manager, Harry Potts, and see if he can give us a bit of advice? And I just thought, and the thing that was going through my mind then, Chris, it's, you know, there's all kinds of funny ideas and bits and pieces. And I'm thinking Bolton have got rid of me. They're a second division club. Burnley are a first division club. Yeah. Why would Burnley want me when I've just been released from a second division club it's going through? So my dad gets on the phone. It was a trimp phone. Do you remember those things?
No,
they made a funny noise. You know? Yeah. And he gets through to Harry Potts, manager of First Division Burnley. Can you imagine these days getting in touch with a Premier League manager? Yeah. Absolutely no chance at all. I mean, Harry could have been on his holidays in I don't know, Benidorm. Yeah, he could have been on the golf course or whatever. But he gets through to him. And obviously I could hear what my dad was saying. He says, well, Mr. Potts, I'm Stanley Dobson. He showed a bit of interest in my son Martin. He's just been released from Bolton. I wonder whether you've got any advice for him. And obviously I didn't hear what Harry said. And my dad put the phone down and he said, Martin, you got a 2-week trial. Yeah. I thought, wow. And all of a sudden, my whole makeup changed. I got my tracksuit on straight away. As I said, I lived in Bishton and I just run and run and run. There's a park there. And before the 1st of July, because it was about 4 or 5 weeks then, because it's pretty, you know, in the summertime, I got my tracksuit on and went out early doors. Nobody in the park. Sometimes I took the dogs, sometimes I didn't. Okay. But I knew that I had, you know, it was a one-off chances. I had to get up to speed before going in there because I know pre-season at any club is very difficult. Yeah. And of course, Burnley being a first division club, they had lots of top international players as well. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. So I knew I had to go in fairly fresh and give it everything for those 2 weeks. Yeah. And it was a different world completely. Burnley, you know, 2 weeks. They extended it to another 2 weeks, play a few games and get the coaching in. And the coach there, Chris, was Jimmy Adamson.
Of course, yeah.
He was absolutely brilliant. You know, he was the captain when Burnley won the first division with Harry as manager in 1960. Got to the FA Cup final in '62 and finished second as well. So the top player he was played alongside Jimmy McIlroy.
Okay.
I think he's the all-time greatest ever player for Burnley.
Burnley, yeah.
But I would put Jimmy Adams in that category as well. But as far as coaching was concerned, it was magnificent. It resonated with me. Two-touch football, control the ball, pass and move. Yeah. Now, we all talk about City these days, don't they? 4 years, Premier League. And basically that's, all right, on a different level. But this was 1967. Control the ball, pass and move. Don't complicate it. Play the way you're facing. Yeah. They always play with wingers, get balls in the box, work hard, think about the fans. They like to be in your position. Attitude's got to be excellent, discipline, and all these things. So I was learning every single day in that month, And it was funny, at the end of the month, I went to Jimmy, because we trained actually on Turf Moor that day, on the Friday. Okay. And I went to Jimmy and I said, Jimmy, do you want me back on Monday? And he started laughing. And he said, of course I want you back, Martin. I said, well, it finishes today, my trial. He says, go and see the manager. He's got a contract for you. So I was running off in the wrong direction. I was running towards the corner flag. This is straight up. Yeah. And Jimmy blew his whistle and said, Martin, manager's office. It's on the halfway line over there. So I go in there and there's all these blue forms. I knocked on the door, Harry Potter's door. And he said, come in, son, you've done well. And all the blue forms. And I'm thinking, give us a pen. He might change his mind.
You're that desperate. Yeah.
So I'm signing all the documents. And then he comes out what the terms and conditions were. £20 a week, Martin. £5 appearance in the first team and £4 winning bonus. I thought, wow. This is 29 quid. If I'm in the first team, I was only on £14 at Bolton, and they thought they were rubbish. Yeah. So I thought, I said, I won't let you down, Mr. Potts. And he says, I know you won't, son. And from now on in, you call me boss. And I came straight back and said, all right, Mr. Potts, I will do. Yeah. And that was it. So I was so excited.
Yeah. Just a little aside there. I saw that Harry Potts was from Hetonley Hall in County Durham, the same village that Bob Paisley came from. Of course, Harry Catterick and Howard Kendall were both County Durham men as well. As somebody who's managed yourself, I just wonder, is there something up in the water up there?
There must be.
Yeah.
I think there must be, unless... household to household, and they come across each other, and maybe they watched each other play as youngsters as well, and show giving it 100% in every game, attitude's good, and and learning off each other. Yeah. I think that's what we do, Chris. We learn off each other. As young players, you're looking for role models all the way along the line. When I came to Burnley, you look at the international players, and John Angus. And Brian Miller, England internationals, and Willie Morgan was a Scottish international. I've got to say something about Andy Lockhead. I don't know if you remember Andy. Yeah. Fearsome striker. But he was he was terrific. I learned so much from him because the reserves were playing the first team in pre-season friendlies, and all that kind of stuff. And I was told to pick him up at set pieces. And the first one was a corner from the right hand. Obviously, I was playing for the reserves and he was playing for the first team. And the first one was a corner from the right hand side. And he was all over me like a rash. He was standing on my toes. Yeah. He was elbowing me in the guts. I thought he was going to nut me at one time. Right. And I'm thinking, we both play for the same team. Yeah. And I managed to get away with it because the delivery wasn't very good. And the next one, I was ready for it. It was a free kick from the right-hand side. Again, Willie Morgan was taking it. So I got a bit bolshy. I was a bit stronger. I says, right, you come on, let's have it. Yeah. He was nice as pie. He started talking to me. He says, hey, Dobo, you scored a couple of goals in a pre-season last week, didn't you, against Buxton? And I just started talking to him. I dropped my guard. And he said, I said, yeah, Andy, it was like this. I hit one from outside the box. Goalkeeper should have had it, What had he done? He nipped round the back. Morgie puts the ball in the back stick. He dives into the 6-yard box and he heads it in the top corner. Yeah. What's Dobo doing? He's talking about the second goal. He scored against Buxton last week. And I thought, wow, Chris, he's done me on the physical side and he's done me on the concentration side. And I learnt more in that 20 minutes than I had in in a year at Bolton Wanderers. Right. Fantastic education.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, learned a lot because of your time at Burnley. Obviously, Jimmy Adamson, who you mentioned there, took over as manager, and you win your first of your 5 English. Well, you win 4 of them while you're still at Burnley, because as you say, it is Dobo club and country. I believe the first one was under Sir Alf Ramsey, and then 3 under Joe Mercer, the great Evertonian, of course, and then Dom Revie as well. I mean, that must have been fantastic times for you there representing your country.
It was, but at that stage, I didn't know whether they were getting rid of me or I got rid of them. Because it was Alf's last game, and it was my first game. Portugal 0 apiece. It wasn't a great game, but England hadn't qualified for the World Cup in 1974. And then I was in the squad for 22 at the end of the 74 season, but he lost his job, of course, Alf, and Joe took over, Joe Mercer. Well, for the first 4 games of that 7-match sequence, I never got a sniff. I was on the bench, and I'm thinking then for the last 3 games when we played in Eastern Europe, the first one in East Germany, and I was flying over there. I'm thinking I'm going to have a word with Joe, and because he obviously doesn't rate me because he hasn't looked at the first 4 games. I haven't been included in anything. Maybe. Anyway, I got in the coach. We played in Leipzig, and I was going from the airport to Leipzig to the hotel, and it was dull, it was depressing, it was dark. I hadn't featured in the first 4 games. And I thought I might have a word with him, because at that time, Burnley Football Club were cruising around the Caribbean on the QE2.
Wow.
On the West Indies. And I'm thinking, I've had a good season. I was a captain of the club.
Yeah.
We got to semi-final against Newcastle. We finished 6th in the league. And there am I in dark and depressing Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, right, I'm going to have a word with Joe and say I picked up a bit of an injury and maybe I've gone back home for treatment. But I'm glad I didn't, because he played me the next game. And he was over the moon about the performance. I played alongside Colin Bell and Trevor Brooking. They were 2 fantastic players, but he was all over us. Was Joe, about the performance, about how we, the energy, the levels, the skill wise, how we kept possession, the chances we made as well, and he actually he was pleased about that. So he kept it for the next game. And the two games after that. So the 3 games at the end, I played in both of those as well.
Yeah, just before we move on to your big move to Everton, I've just got to ask you about Joe, because obviously he's a lifelong Evertonian. He was part of Everton's 1939 title-winning side. Obviously, he won everything in domestic football with Manchester City. But what was he like as a man and a manager?
Oh, it was superb. Yeah. When I got to know him, I mean, after one of those England games, we came into the hotel for the meal after the game. He just singled me over. And I thought, no, because really you just want to be with the players. You've won the game or whatever it is. And he sat down with me and he said, you did well, son. You did well, son, today. But, not a right lot about the game. I won't say exactly what he said. Yeah. And he said, no, you did great. But when you lose possession, you've got to get behind the ball quicker, right? And I was thinking at that time, I was, because Colin Bell was absolutely brilliant. He could do everything, couldn't he? Defensively, attacking wise. And I thought for this particular game, the first one, Joe was playing me as an attacking midfield player.
Okay.
So I took it on board, and it was so we had a laugh about that. But so our relationship was terrific at the end of the those games, and I was really appreciating that he included me in them, and it got me up and running.
Yeah, and then obviously you make your move. You mentioned obviously Bob Latchford was a part exchange, but for yourself, you're the first £300,000 player. I mean, how did you feel about that? Because obviously you'd done so well at Burnley, and as you mentioned, they're a selling club, but incredible moment for you to get to come to Everton. Well,
it came as a shock, Chris. I've got to say that, because as I said, we had a good season the previous season, 73-74. Burnley finished 6th in the league and semi-final, and there was a lot of speculation about my own position. and playing those England games as well. And it was a selling club, of course, Burnley.
Yeah.
Bob Lowe was the chairman. He kept the club out the red all the time. But as I said, there was speculation. We'd only played a couple of games that season. This is August. And then I was told to report to the chairman's office at Turf Moor. So I went down to Turf. I knocked on his door, obviously expecting to see Bob Lord.
Yeah.
And I went inside, and there's Billy Bingham, manager of Everton.
Yeah.
Another guy who I didn't know at the time, but he was a secretary, Chris Hassel.
Okay.
And I went to and just looked round the door and I said, "Oh, sorry, I've got the wrong room." So I was going out, and Billy said, "No, Martin, come on in. We'd like to have a chat." So I thought, does Bob Lord know that you're here? Or Jimmy Adamson, who was a manager then. You know, I was so naive.
Yeah.
And nowadays it's all about agents who know everything that's going on all the time, don't they? So I sat down with him and I realised it was a done deal. And I thought straight away, Chris, I've got to say this. Whatever he says, I am not going to lose this opportunity of playing for Everton Football Club. Yeah. Right? Whatever even if it's only a 20 quid rise for my wages, I'm not going to miss out on it, because I can look back on that game at Brazil and I'm thinking, Goodison, and I played a few times for Burnley, and the atmosphere and the crowd, and I thought, very, very special. So whatever he said, and it was very easy for him, because at the end he spoke for about 10 minutes and he said, and I hardly said anything, and he said, "Martin, come over tomorrow to Goodison and we'll have another chat and talk it from there." And again, he took me out on the pitch, and I was gobsmacked, you know, thinking, wow, this is it. And then he, I think, I got a 50 quid rise. It was 120 quid at Burnley.
Yeah.
And my basic wage then was 170 at 170 at Everton.
Okay.
And now as a cash record fee, it'd probably start at 170,000. So things have moved on a little bit over the last 50 years. But I was so appreciative of getting the opportunity to play in such a great club.
Yeah. Well, coming in there, I mean, I believe the pre-seasons were pretty brutal under Billy Bingham out there on the sands up at Birkdale. I believe you saw red rum amongst other things, but then there were so was it the Beast? Was it this giant sand dune? I mean, what happened? What was that?
Oh,
like?
that, yeah. Never come across that before. Pre-season training, went on the Ainsdale Beach,
Ainsdale
and all that.
Was it?
And then it's running up the sand dunes, and you're thinking, wow, what's going on here? You're looking up, it's miles in the air. I never, I've been a professional 6-7 years then, never come across anything like that. And I struggled, big season, on all fours trying to get to the top of this. And it wasn't a case of just one, it was down to the bottom and then up again and then. But we did see, during that time, red rum. And it was just fantastic, because it was who was a trainer?
Ginger McCain, yeah.
Ginger McCain.
Yeah.
And he just lived around the corner from the Fisherman's Rest and all that, in a second-hand car dealership, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I used to see him on the beaches. And this is a horse that won 3 Grand Nationals and won and second twice, I think. And just going up and down the beaches. It was just surreal.
Don't think Ginger had him going over the beast, did he?
I don't think so. No, red rum didn't go up there, but it was very, very special.
Yeah. Maybe, I mean, I wonder if those brutal pre-seasons played a part, because you're in that title race in the first season. There was yourselves, Liverpool, Derby County and Stoke City.
Yes.
And some infamous results, because of Carlisle United done you twice, and then was it the final home game was at Sheffield United 2-0 up and then lost 3-2.
Lost 3-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in amongst it all the time. That season, we drew a lot of games. I remember that. It was only 2 points for a win and 1 point for a draw. And I just felt, because that was my first season, 74-75, I just felt maybe we were trying maybe not to lose games instead of trying to win them.
Yeah.
I'd always come from a club, Burnley, that on the front foot, as I said, wingers, crosses in, bodies in the box and all that. And I'm thinking, and of course trying to keep possession and all that. And it was slightly different. We worked tremendously hard at Everton, I've got to say that. But the spark I felt was missing sometimes if we're going to get over the line. We had a fantastic goal scorer in Lecce.
Yeah.
You know, if we give him good service, he's going to score the goals as he proved throughout the season. So, but that particular season, we look at it, and Carlisle beat us twice, and Sheffield United, as you said, you know, they were mid-table, 2-0 up, and I'm thinking just then, I've got to say that, just keep possession of the ball, keep it, which we would have done at Burnley, but all of a sudden it all got a bit frantic, and I'm not saying we threw it away, but we had a great opportunity to because I think we finished 3 points away from the champions. So very disappointing. Yeah.
It did get you into Europe. I just want to ask you quickly about this one, because obviously Everton have had a few tough draws in Europe over the years, and he got AC Milan there. But the East German referee, Rudi Glockner, he was a colourful character, shall we say?
Yeah, he was. It was very disappointing.
Yeah.
You know, over there.
Yeah.
I don't know, whether 60,000 watching the game or whatever, and we had 100% chances. Sorry, penalty shouts.
Yeah.
He never gave, and of course he gave one dodgy one for them. So I'm not quite sure what happened, but Billy wasn't happy with that in his programme notes after the game. You know, he said, well, he couldn't actually say what he felt, but it was a bit dodgy, to say the least. And of course, we came back home and we didn't score a goal, did we? We drew the game. We were on the front foot, so we lost the game 1-0, and so we're out of it after working hard all season. To get into a good position at the end of the season, and then to go out the first round, it was very massively disappointing.
Yeah, and we're speaking now not long after James Tarkowski's derby goal. Just wanted to ask you about your Anfield pile drive. I know it wasn't a great day for the Blues, but it was a special goal for yourself. Any Everton player to score a goal like that at Anfield? Yeah,
it was in the end it was a consolation because we lost the game 3-1.
Yeah.
But it was funny that, because I picked it up from Di Davis and I came over the halfway line, and I think the TV cameras almost lost it as well. I think they were showing another incident or whatever. And I was always looking, because my game's all about pass and move. I was always looking for passing and moving, and nobody seemed to come close, or they were backing off. And I got to the 18-yard box, or whatever, just outside the 18-yard box. It must have been 25 yards at least. And I was a bit tired then, I must admit. And I'm thinking, well, Dobo, you've got to smack it, son. You've got to smack it. And it was all to do with what I remember Bobby Charlton saying at one time when he scored a goal in the World Cup. Yeah. Fantastic goal. And somebody must have said to him, "Hey, Bobby, you picked your spot, didn't you, in the top corner?" And Bobby came out and said, no. From outside the box, you try and hit the goalkeeper, because you've got to get pace on it, and it will deviate. So I've always remembered that, because he was my all-time favourite player, Bobby. So I just got my head down and smacked it, and it did. It went in the top corner. It was a consolation, but it was disappointing that we lost the game, of course. Yeah,
and then obviously Billy Bingham makes way for Gordon Lee. I guess Billy, it was always tough for him coming after Harry Catterick, but Gordon Lee was someone you felt you were on the same wavelength with a lot of the time.
I felt Gordon, when he came, Gordon Lee, he just did some passing sequences. Just what probably 11-year-olds will do that, knock it into the middle and get it back and go to the end and all that. And I'm thinking he's getting some movement and some passing and simple basic things at the beginning, and it went on to that. I like Gordon. He was honest as he just taught football for Britain, didn't he? Football, and he wanted us to be on the front foot. We were a good side. He was encouraging us as good players, and he was always talking about the fans as well. We've got to entertain the fans, because you're good enough to do that on the front foot, because if you're showing willing about entertaining, be on the front, scoring goals, getting crosses in, they'll be with you all the time, and they'll lift you when things are going not too good as well. And he was absolutely right. So the performances were better. We scored a lot more goals. You know, it's entertaining for the fans, and it was enjoyable.
Yeah. One person who was perhaps a bit too entertaining for Gordon, though, was Duncan McKenzie at times. A good friend of yours, just to deviate a bit. I mean, what was he like? Because I remember, I'm sort of moving on a bit. I'll go back again here, but see, there was a game after Duncan had gone, and he was playing for Chelsea at Goodison, and he actually got applauded when he put Chelsea.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I like Duncan.
Yeah.
He loved Everton Football Club for a start as well, and his wife had a business, a florist, I think, in the Liverpool area. I got on with him really well, and the fans loved him as well.
Yeah.
And I always sensed when there's a clash of personalities with Gordon and Dunk. Maybe he thought he wasn't working hard enough. I'm not quite sure, but there was always a bit of a sigh when the team was announced before the game. 3:00 kickoff, of course, in those days. And if Duncan wasn't, you could sense it when we were warming up on the field, like that, you know, because they loved him. And it showed in the semi-final. He was man of the match, wasn't he, in the first game against Liverpool, you know, at Main Road. So, anyway, he came in one day, Duncan. I got him, he was fantastic. And I said, he said, Dobo, Chelsea have come in for me. I said, right. He said, but I don't want to go. I love Everton and I like Liverpool ever. And we just talked it over, and I said, well, you've got to show a bit of respect, Dunk. You know, go down there, ask for something silly, like a house in Mayfair or, you know, a boat on the Thames or something like that. They'll say no, and then you can come back.
Yeah.
So I rang him a couple of days later. I said, Dunk, when he come back, he says, I'm not Double. I said, we talked about it. He said yes to everything.
Wow.
And then in November, of course, it was Everton versus Chelsea at Goodison.
Yeah.
And inevitably what happened, who scored the first goal? It was Duncan. So it was Everton 0, Chelsea 1. And I come back, you know, to the halfway line for the kickoff with lights. I look over at Gordon, and he's got his head in his hands like this. He's probably thinking, no, anybody but him.
Yeah.
And then I look around the stadium, and there's 45,000 Evertonians on the feet clapping, and we're 1-0 down.
Yeah.
It was surreal. I'm saying, Lex, what's going on here? You know, because we're 1-0 down, and then we realised it was Duncan who scored the goal. Anyway, Kingy scored the equaliser. What a great lad Kingy was. Taken much too soon, wasn't he? Super lad Kingy, one apiece. Then they scored the second goal, made it 2-1. And then I realised in the second half, you know, for that 20-minute spell, we've got to go and support Latch, get in the box. So I was playing like left side midfield, left centre midfield, and I had to keep supplying Dave Thomas. What a winger he was. Super player, Dave, and a great lad as well. Keep supplying Dave, but as soon as I gave him the ball, I've got to get in the box, Double. And that's what happened. Crossed it in, I headed it in the top corner on the far post, and then 10 minutes, of course, the crowd took over then.
Yeah.
2 apiece, you know, on the front foot. Similar scenario, another 10 minutes. Dave crosses it, Dobo has it in the net, we win 3-2. It was a fantastic day. I see Dunk in the players' lounge after the game, and he's got a great big smile on his face. He says, Dobo, what a great game. You score, I score, and Everton win. And he's playing for Chelsea.
Wow.
He was fantastic.
Yeah. Just rolling back, obviously not long after Gordon came in, you get to the League Cup final, and it's the only time that that competition has gone to 3 games. You play Wembley in the first game, you missed the second game for injury, is that right?
Yeah,
and then you're back
right.
for the second replay.
Yeah.
Must have been absolutely gutting after all that, all the fight over those 3 matches to lose outright at the end there.
Yeah. The first game was a 0-0 draw, which was big disappointing because that's a major event at Wembley, isn't it? Yeah. We want to do well, and I got a hip injury. And I struggled for the replay, which was the next week at Sheffield Wednesday, so I didn't play in that, and that was another draw. And the second replay at Old Trafford,
right.
Yeah, and we missed out on that again. Lions who get the equaliser, but then they get one right at the death. It was very poor defending and missed out again. Yeah. You know, it's one of those. It's Very, very disappointing. And I think that second replay was, was it a month?
After the first game at
After
Wembley?
the first game.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it went on forever and a day. And almost, but not quite, Chris. This is the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You keep battling on. You come back the next season and try and, to win a pot. That's what you want to do for all the fans. And you've got something there. And we come back the following season and try again and again and again. Didn't quite work out.
Yeah.
We always finished in the top four more often than not.
Yeah.
But that was a massive disappointment.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to keep going on about this, but because not long after that, then you've got the Liverpool semi-final, of course, because you've had this cortisone injection to play, and obviously the old Evertonians remember you'd gone off by this stage, and it was your replacement Brian Hamilton who was denied by Mr. Clive Thomas. But I believe it was tough for you just even to be featuring that because some huge needle appeared, didn't it?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I mean Jimmy McGregor. I actually saw him at the game last week. It was a physio.
Yeah,
Jim McGregor, and super physio. And I got this groin strain week before the semi-final, and I was struggling. I couldn't train. And Jimmy took me. He says, "Dobo, you've just got to ease it now, and we'll get there before kickoff. We'll get an hour before the players." And I was thinking he's going to give me a massage or maybe a warm up and down the line. But it was lashing down. The pitch was heavy. There's surplus water all the time. And so I went in the treatment room at Main Road, and he says, "Just drop your shorts, Dobbo." And he says, "Hold your crown jewels." Right? So I said, right. And then the doctor comes in with this needle. I had no idea that this was already in place. Yeah. And he puts it right inside my groin. And Jimmy says afterwards, "Good luck, Dobbo. Good luck."
Yeah.
I says, right. So, okay, the pain was taken away. And at that time, during the game, 20 minutes from the end of the game, obviously the pain came back and Brian came on. And the incident that we all know about with Ronnie sprinting down the left-hand side, super crossing whipped in. Yeah. And he gets on the end of it, bundles it over the line. It's not handball, it's not offside. And then the referee, Clive Thomas, gets involved, doesn't he?
Yeah. An infringement of play or whatever he said.
An infringement of play. He didn't know. Yeah. He wanted to be the centre of attention all the time. Most referees, good referees, they just want to take a back seat, and all that, and just occasionally. But this was ridiculous. I think he accepted that he made a mistake. And, of course, no VAR at that time. No. And the final was would have been against Manchester United. I'm not saying we would have won it, but it would have been brilliant to play at Wembley in an FA Cup final, but it was denied because, of course, we lost the replay.
Yeah. So moving on to brighter things, that the following season ends in drama because it's Bob Latchford and his 30 goals. So Chelsea on the final day, if fans aren't aware of this, it had been a while since someone had got to 30. So was it the Daily Express that had the offering up the money for somebody to get there, and Latch is a couple of goals short going into that final game against Chelsea. So. It was quite the day, wasn't it? It
was a super day. We all wanted Lights to get over that mark because it's a massive achievement, 30 league goals in a season, and they only brought it out the Express, I think, because defences were on top at that time. Okay. The few and far between goals, but Lights was 28, and there were 3 games left, so I thought he had a good chance, but. Those 2 games, and then he didn't score. Yeah. And then it came to the Chelsea game, and everybody's rooting for him, of course. But it got to 3-0. I got the first goal in header, and then Neil Robinson and Wrighty, 2 defenders. So we're 3-0 up, and Lexi's not scored
any of them.
And he's thinking, what's going on here? He gets the next one. There's Leitch, which is great, 4-0. So he's 1 to get. And then it was astonishing, really, because the crowd were booing after this one because Lyonsy put it in the net and they thought Latchy was just behind him and he could have left it to Latchy. Yeah. So that was 5. Anyway, the last goal, the 6th goal, was, of course, the penalty.
Yeah.
And it was Lyonsy who just went down. I think these days it might have gone to VAR. It might have been questionable about being a soft one.
Yeah.
But of course, like, he had to take it, and he had a word with me. I don't know, before he took the pen, he says, "Dobo, what do I do?" Because he wasn't great at ball being. He liked moving balls, and he was terrific in that 6-yard box and 18-yard box. But stationary ball, he wasn't terrific. Otherwise, he'd have taken more free kicks probably, and outside the box, because he's a great goal scorer. And I just said, well, just score, Lecce. That'll help, then you go down in history. And but just get your head down. If you're a bit uncomfortable, what are you going to do? Just get your head down and strike through the ball. Get some pace on it, because there's always a chance if the goalkeeper does stop it, then you'll be second in and all that. But hit the time. And he pinged it in the box. He was fantastic. Like he'd been scoring goals from penalties all season. Yeah. And everybody jumped on him. It's really pleased for him. And the crowd were on the pitch as well. It was super for the lad, because he's such a great guy as well. A fantastic goal scorer, like a family man, and quiet, unassuming, but what a goal scorer.
Yeah. And it should have been like a big windfall for him, but he was generous enough to divvy it out amongst all the lads. And I think then the taxman was chasing him as well, because he didn't believe that he hadn't pocketed all the winnings, so he didn't end up with much, I don't think, in the end, did he?
I think he lost out on it, to be honest, because it was 10,000, but I think 5,000 had to go to the Benevolent Association or something like that. Something I'm not quite sure. Yeah. And then he gave a few to the lads and the coaches and the manager and the bits and pieces, and afterwards, then he was taxed by the taxman for the full 10,000. Yeah. And because he came out probably with nothing. Yeah. I think it helped with his negotiations for the new contracts at the start of the following season. But as far as the 10 grand, he didn't see any of it. Yeah,
well, the following season, Latchford's goal scoring actually does for you, because you get your only Everton hat trick against Wimbledon in the League Cup, but then you don't end up with the match ball because of certain Mr. Latchford. Do you get the other 5?
That was just fantastic. Yeah. I didn't get the match ball because Lecce scored 5. We beat Wimbledon 8-0 in a League Cup game. And at the end of the game, Lecce gets the ball under his shirt off the pitch. I've never seen him
move so fast.
So I'm like a big kid then. I go over to the referee. And I said, hey, ref, where's my ball? I was going out. Where's my... Only one ball, Martin. He said, only one ball. I'm thinking, this is Wimbledon. Every time they came to play at Goodison, they used to whack it 6 balls out of the Gladys Street end.
That'd be one for you now.
Yeah, and there's only one. So a few years, it was, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, grandchildren came around to our house and they must have been finding out about it. They were excited to say, Grandad, you scored that trick for Everton, didn't you? And I said, yeah, I did. And they said, where's the ball? And I made out, it's in the garage. I'll have to dig it out next time you come. What did I have to do? I had to go and buy one. I bought one. I put a few autographs. Me and the missus signed a few autographs. Next time the grandchildren came around, they said, hey, Grandad, you've looked after this ball in good condition, isn't it? It's fantastic.
Brand new.
After 40 years. So I have told them they're in the 20s now. It was great for Lecce. And as I said, my only hat trick, but it was a good night. Good night.
And we mentioned obviously Derby disappointment a couple of times there, but you get to captain Everton in your final season, the Andy King Derby, a great moment there. Obviously, wearing the armband for such an occasion. It's a moment which Evertonians will remember forever. That day.
Yes, yeah. It was disappointing, of course, for Mickey Lyons, who was a captain, and he was either suspended. I'm not quite sure because whether he was suspended or whether he's injured. Yeah. But he missed this game, and of course, Lyons, he was Everton through and through. Course, he was on the terrace as a young kid and all that, and he was captain of the club, and he was looking forward to these games and know what it meant. He was always telling us what it meant to the fans more than anything else. He couldn't play this game, and of course, I was vice captain then. And the difficulty then is coming out of Goodison, they wanted both teams to come out at the same time. Yeah. So you're standing right next, and actually Kenny Dalglish was a captain for this game because Phil Thompson, similar scenario. Okay. He was either injured or suspended, so Kenny came out and all that. And you don't talk to him, but you're squeezing up right next to him, and everybody's, referee goes out first. So it's uncomfortable. But then you step up from the gangway there, and you go onto the pitch, and the noise level, it hits you.
Okay.
Wow, because of course we're the first players out as captain. I was coming out, and you realise then what it means to all the fans in the ground. They love to be where you are. The atmosphere is unbelievable. So you've got a special step, and you know the importance of it. And I took on the responsibility as captain as well, because I was into my 20s. But I think you've got to, encourage the boys now, get onto them, and make sure that things are going well all over the pitch. Yeah. And of course, the goal from Kingy was magnificent. Everybody thought I picked him out, but it wasn't. Peggy just knocked it into the box to me, and I knocked it down into an area. And Kingy comes on, knocks it right in the top corner. Yeah. Brilliant goal by Kingy, super goal. I saw him in the dressing room after the game, and I said, Kingy, did you shin that or what? Did you shin it? He says, Dobo, sweet as a note, sweet as a note. Yeah. I thought, fantastic. And of course, if you remember, he was doing an interview with one of the, match of the day and all that. And there's a steward actually tell him to get off the pitch.
Yeah, policeman, wasn't it? A policeman, get off the pitch.
Nobody on the pitch, get off and all that. And this is his best moment for Everton football. A big smile on his face, and he's telling to go. So it was great, and it was a super day, and the fans played their part like they've always done.
Incredible memories. But I just wanted to ask you about this one, perhaps one of your most surreal Everton moments. The game in Libya. He went on a trip to Libya, and a certain Colonel Gaddafi in the crowd. And what are your memories of that one? You were talking beforehand, and it's more memories really about what you came back with.
Yeah, it was a funny one. That where's that come about? I'm not quite sure whether they paid Everton a lot of money to go over there.
Yeah.
And Colonel Gaddafi, when we were talking about him, all the lads in the dressing room were saying, "Well, is he playing and what? What position is he playing?"
Mark him on corners.
Corners. Too risky, but it was rock hard pitch. I think it was concrete, and then there's carpets on it, and then, but it was funny when we were coming back because they gifted us 6 massive carpets.
Yeah.
That was it. And, of course, Gordon, when we got to Heathrow Airport, and bringing these through customs and control, and they're saying, where's the documentation? Where's the paperwork for all these things? And Gordon says, well, we haven't got anything. It's a gift, well, you can't do that. So we're hanging around for the customs for about half an hour. And in the end, I think Gordon just said, look, we're going to leave them here. If we're not taking it, we'll leave them here, right? And we're not going through anything else because there's a coach outside waiting to take us back to Merseyside. Yeah. And then in the end, they succumbed, so we take them on massive carpets in the coach.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether they went to Belfield or whether they went to somebody's front room. I'm not quite sure.
Flew off, magic carpets. But when it was time for you to go, you went back to Burnley, of course. But I mean, was that a sad moment? I believe it was over the length of the contract. How did that one work out?
Yeah, I'd really enjoyed it at Everton. I was coming to the end of my contract, and Gordon, obviously, I think he rated me, as a player because he's. But it was one of those. He let my contract run out at the end of the season, and then Harry Potts, who'd come back to Burnley as manager, who had a lot of respect for him, he made contact. He says, Dobo, I understand that your contract's come to an end now. We'd like you to come back to Burnley. Burnley were then in what is now the Championship, second division. And I had total respect for Harry as well. And Harry came out with a 4-year contract. I was 31 years of age then, and that would take me to 35. And then Everton came in with a 2-year contract. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to be 33 then and all that. I would have liked to stay, and actually I should have stayed. I should have stayed at Everton. Yeah. I felt at that time I've played in the back four as well, and it was all about, playing from the back as well. That was coming into the new game. Yeah. And I played for the under-23s many years before in that position for Alf, so I was comfortable in it. But he didn't take me up on that, and in the end I went to Burnley. I realised a big mistake.
Okay, yeah.
Because I've come from a team that's finished third in the league, excellent professionals. You know, we had a lot of success, and I come there, and all of a sudden it wasn't the same as when I left it. You know, all those 5 years ago or whatever it was. So, but you make the best of it, and it was really out of respect for Harry.
Yeah.
Because he gave me my first contract was 19 years of age, and he was still the enthusiast was Harry. He was smile on his face. He was, you know, if middle of winter, if it's freezing cold and all that kind of stuff, he's always saying, you know, run around a little bit more, and then you don't need tracksuit bottoms on.
Well, yeah.
So he had a sense of humour.
Yeah, great love for both clubs. But if we come fast forward almost to the present day, obviously you've been working on the corporate side of things and the hospitality at Everton, and obviously I imagine a lot of the time that's a very enjoyable role. But it was a couple of years ago now that Bournemouth game, and I think we saw what Goodison Park's all about that day, although it wasn't a very pleasant experience until that full-time whistle blew.
It was a tough game for everybody, wasn't it? The last game of the season, we knew what the scenario was. Southampton were down, I think, weren't they? And the last two places between ourselves and Leicester and Leeds. Yes. But we knew that if we won the game, if Everton won the game, nobody could catch us. So it was a massive game, a lot of pressure on the manager and the players there. And I was at home. I've got to be at Goodison 3 hours before the kickoff.
Yeah.
And I live in the Horwich area near Bolton. I was suited and booted, and I was listening to smooth radio. And the last record that came on was Bob Marley. Don't worry, everything's going to be all right.
All right, okay.
Hey, Chris, this is straight up.
Yeah.
So I was dancing around the kitchen table, and I was going, hey, if it's good enough for Bob's an Evertonian. Fantastic, I'm doing all that. And then the dog, we've got the grandson's dog, it's a black Labrador. It starts dancing with me. Actually, it's a better dancer than me. Why is that? Because he's got 4 legs, I've only got 2. Yeah. And the wife comes in, Carol comes in. And we've all had those scenarios, haven't we? You know, with the better half, they come in and they look at you a bit like this and saying, what's he doing? You know, what's he doing? He's making a fool of himself. And she says, what are you doing? So I give her the scenario. I said, Bob Marley, he's an Evertonian. I'm going to go into Everton today. I'm going to talk to all the fans, and I'm going to tell them to get out there and have a smile on their face, and all the fans are going to be with them. You know, lift them when you go out on the stadium. So when I went in, actually, to this, I think I was in the Joe Mercer and the Alex Young lounges for that particular game. And I thought, I went in, wow. And they're all down, the fans. And I said, come on. So I give them the story about that. I came in at half-time, and they started to give me a rocket because it was 0 apiece. They said, Dobo, you said we're going to win this game. I says, only half-time. Yeah. Let's have a go. And I'm thinking, if we're 3-0 down with 10 minutes to go, I'm not going back in those lounges. I'm off. We're supposed to be there for an hour's game, but of course, Decore scores a magic goal, doesn't he? And Jordan makes 1 or 2 important reflex saves. Yeah. And it was fantastic. We see it through. 10 minutes of time added on as well. And after the game, I saw Peter Reid. Yeah. And we both had a tear in our eye because we knew that the fans were so important on that day. We would not have got over the line without them as well. Yeah. And it was just incredible because the flares and the music and it was just incredible. Yeah. And it just shows the passion of everybody. Everybody can accept responsibility for getting us over the line, but especially the fans. I thought they were magnificent that day.
Yeah. So you mentioned the fans now. Thankfully, with David Moyes in charge now, hopefully it's not going to be the same again this season. But, I mean, how do you think you will feel saying goodbye to Goodison Park, just an amazing part of your lives and the lives of so many?
Yeah, it's a two-way thing, isn't it? It's such a magical place because we've all got our memories about it. But I think in the modern era, the modern game, it's a little bit tired now. Mm-hmm. And if we want to progress, which of course all Evertonians do, a bigger crowd a magnificent stadium. I haven't been to it yet,
Right,
but I've
okay.
heard all about it, and it's going to be inspiring to the Evertonians who are going to play in it in the next few years. It's going to be magic.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Martin Dobson.